So this tutorial is to talk about the different ways we can do our vinyasa. So if you practice vinyasa yoga, you will be familiar with what I mean. So we're talking about the movement that we do repetitively from our downward facing dog forwards into plank, bending the elbows coming down into a chaturanga maybe, or other variations, and then eventually into a back bend like cobra, upward facing dog, and then back into downward facing dog. And because of the repetitive nature of these movements, and because we do them so often in Vinyasa yoga, it's important that we do them well. So let's have a look at a couple of different ways you can do your vinyasa. I usually teach either a vinyasa with chaturanga or a modified chaturanga. But there is another way that you might have come across if you practice with other teachers, which is doing a chest and chin vinyasa. So a knees, chest and chin vinyasa. So I just want you to know this is different from chaturanga. So let me just show you the knee, chest and chin variation, and then we'll talk about the chaturanga and the modification for chaturanga. So when we come from our downward facing dog forwards into plank, sometimes you're told to drop your knees, your chest and your chin down, squeezing the elbows in one toward the other so your bum is up into the air. From here, you then slide forwards into a cobra pose and back into a downward facing dog. So this is one way to do your vinyasa. I personally don't teach knees, chest and chin usually, but I teach a modification of a chaturanga so that eventually you are working into being able to do a full chaturanga in your practice. So if you're new, I will teach you first a half chaturanga or a modified chaturanga with the knees down, and then eventually build up into your full chaturanga with the knees off the ground. So let me just show you what that looks like, and then we'll talk about it. So from your downward facing dog, you will be shifting forwards into a plank pose, dropping the knees to the ground, keeping your tailbone tucked under, your belly button lifting in and up, your collarbones spreading and opening, while your upper back is still spreading here, and it's slightly rounded. Then you bend the elbows, and you're going to keep the elbows in towards the chest and slowly, slowly, slowly lower yourself to the ground. This might be really hard at the beginning, but you're working towards coming down slow and with control. Lifting up into cobra pose, smiling the chest open, and up and back into downward facing dog. So when you work with this kind of vinyasa, you're preparing for chaturanga because there is a very small difference, which is just the knees down into the ground, but the rest of the body is doing your chaturanga action. So if you are intending to learn to eventually vinyasa into a full chaturanga, I would recommend you vinyasa like this in preparation for your chaturanga, because the body is already in a very similar position. When I say a full chaturanga, let me just show you what this means. So you will go forwards into plank. This time the knees are off the ground. Your thighs are up and engaged. Your belly lifts in, your tailbone is curled under. You're still broadening through your collarbones, and then you bend the elbows and you come down into your chaturanga. Flip the feet, come up into upward facing dog. So you'll see now my thighs are off the ground, my knees are off the ground. Now onto the front of the feet, my chest is open, and from here into downward facing dog. Good. So when we work into a half chaturanga or a full chaturanga, not only we're working our arms, which a lot of people tend to think it's where everything comes from, but we're really working into our core and into our central line of the body. So we need to come up and stand, and if you have a yoga block, place it between your thighs. If you don't have a yoga block, you can place anything that kind of has this shape between your thighs, or just imagine that you have a block between your inner thighs. So your feet will be a little bit apart, so you can accommodate the space, the block between the thighs. Then slightly engage your inner thighs to squeeze the block gently. And just feel that activation of one leg moving in towards the other. Your pelvic floor engages and lifts. Your glutes are switched on. Then continue that engagement through the central line of the body by pulling the belly in slightly, lifting up through the crown of the head, and relax the shoulders. Okay, just take a couple of breaths here. Keep the attention on that central line of the body, which effectively starts from the inner arches of your feet, all the way up into the inner leg, up into the central line of your abdomen, and all the way through the crown of your head. And when we work into Chaturanga, and even a modification of Chaturanga, we're still effectively doing the same thing, still engaging our central line, still engaging our abdominals, and our arms will be reaching forwards, and the movement is this. Let me turn around. So my elbows are bending and staying in towards the body. So let's translate this onto Chaturanga or modified Chaturanga, coming to the floor. So if we are working into a modified Chaturanga, we can still have the block between the inner thighs. And this is just to feel that engagement of the midline. So we'll take the hands down, knees down, and then lift, tuck the toes, lift the knees for a moment. Coming into plank pose. Now imagine, like you just did standing, your central line of the body is strong, thighs and glutes engaged, belly pulling in, crown of the head moving away from your heels. Take a big breath in, and then drop the knees to the ground. Now keep everything, so keep squeezing the block between the thighs, tucking the tailbone under, lifting your belly, and then take a breath. Collarbones open and broaden. Bend the elbows, and as slowly as possible, keep the elbows in and lower yourself all the way to the ground. Come up into Cobra pose, still engaging the inner thighs, still squeezing the block. Tuck the toes, lift up into downward facing dog, and hold the block there in position. Good, go ahead, drop the knees to the ground, and set the block to the side for a moment. So moving through your vinyasa with the block in between the thighs just gives you that reminder to engage the central line of the body. So let's do the same, either working with the knees down like we've just done, or with the knees off the ground into a full Chaturanga. And what I want you to avoid doing is collapsing down. So if this is happening for you, and you're kind of like into your plank, you drop the knees, and then you start to bend the elbows and you feel like, oh my god, this is too much and I'm collapsing down, then you're not ready to try a Chaturanga. You want to continue working with the knees down, and every time you come into it, knees down, engage, tailbone tucks, belly lifts, collarbones spread. Come down just a little bit. Just until you can control that action. And then maybe from here, push yourself back up. And then see if little by little you can improve your ability to slowly lower yourself down with control, eventually coming all the way to the floor. And the day when you feel that, yeah, actually this is possible, it's quite accessible to me now, I can feel that my arms work like my brakes to slow my way down, then you're ready to try your Chaturanga. So if you are ready, let's go for it. Otherwise, keep the knees down, working to a modified Chaturanga. From plank pose, engage your thighs, lift them off the ground, but keep your tailbone tucked under your belly in. Get chest open, breathe in. Squeeze the inner thighs into the center. Open up the chest, upward facing dog, downward facing dog, exhale. Knees to the ground and let it go. Good. So do it a few times with the block, and then you can try the same movement without the block and still feel that engagement of the inner thighs moving in one towards the other. So let's do one more time, either knees down or full chaturanga. I'll do the modified version with the knees down. If you want to go for chaturanga, go for it. As long as you feel that you have full control as you lower into the position. There are no benefits of doing a chaturanga where you collapse. There are loads of benefits of doing the modified version. Imagine the block is still there between the inner thighs. Hug the thighs in, tap tailbone, lift belly. Bend the elbows, slow. Coming back into downward dog. And drop the knees. Okay. So remember, it's essential if you practice Vinyasa yoga that you can Vinyasa with control. Because you do it so often, it's important that you do it really well. So please practice at home if you need to. Do whatever you need to do so that you can continue building the strength. And don't be in a rush to get to a chaturanga. Keep working with your knees down until you feel that you've gained the strength. As I said, when you collapse to the ground, there's really nothing to gain from that. So if you feel that you can't lower down with control, then knees down, take it slow, take it easy, and you will get there. You will gain strength into your arms, into your core, to eventually work into a full chaturanga if you want to. Otherwise, you continue working with the knees down. And to be honest, when I go and practice into classes, sometimes I alternate. I do some vinyasas with the knees down and some vinyasas with the knees off the ground. Why? Well, because sometimes I actually get really tired when I go to an intense class, and I know my body cannot keep up with doing 1,000 chaturangas really fast, and at some point I lose my alignment. And when I lose my alignment, I just need to set the ego to the side. I know I can do a chaturanga, I know I can do it well, but this is not the time to do 1,000,000 chaturangas and do them badly because I'm going to injure myself. So just think about that, practice, 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 and if you have any questions, just leave me a comment down below. And also if you have any requests for other tutorials, let me know what you'd like to see next.